Now, next I want to turn to an extraordinary day in Thailand. Protests in Bangkok are demanding curbs to the king's powers. That's remarkable because the Thai constitution says the king has to be held in a position of revered worship. And the protests want the resignation of the prime minister. That's remarkable because he's a former leader of the military junta that ruled Thailand from 2014 until last year. But have a look at this. Here we see the king and the queen being driven by motorcade through the protesters, and this was what greeted them. And some of these protesters, if you look closely, are using an anti-government three-finger salute, something we think has come from the film The Hunger Games, and you can also see the heavy police presence too. I should say there was a counter-protest as well. These supporters of the monarchy turned out dressed in the royal yellow colour. And this is another video in which we can see royalists dressed in yellow clashing with anti-government protesters, and you can see the police getting involved too. And these are the latest pictures. It's early morning in Bangkok, and the anti-government rally is still going on in front of the Prime Minister's headquarters. Now, this day hasn't come out of the blue. It's been coming. There's been an unprecedented series of protests in recent months. The BBC's Jonathan Head was at this most recent one.
Well, this now looks like the end of a protest which began with high tension a little distance from here in perhaps the most sensitive spot in Bangkok, Royal Avenue, an avenue along which the king was going in a motorcade. It's the first time King Vajiralongkorn has been in Thailand when we've had one of these big protests, and everyone wondered what would happen if the king was being in some way insulted or not respected. There were large numbers of pro-royal yellow-shirted supporters out there. But in the end, these student-led protesters decided to avoid confrontation, and they've moved up here just outside the office of the Prime Minister. They've been blockaded, the police have put up concrete barricades, razor wire, but they're keeping their spirits up. They certainly believe the momentum of their movement, which is pushing for really quite radical demands, is still strong. Given what these protesters are asking for, this is a revolutionary moment for Thailand now. Many such confrontations in the past have ended violently in this country. This one so far, everyone is trying to keep it civilized, it's organized. At every point, they're trying to negotiate their way through. But don't be in any doubt at all about how profound the division is now between these young people who have simply got sick of the way in which politics has been done, the way in which the military involves itself in politics and the role of the monarchy, and a government which literally has its back to the wall.
And the man in the middle of this story is King Vajiralongkorn. He's been king since 2016. He's 68, was educated in Britain and Australia. He's been married 4 times, has 7 children, and spends much of his time in Germany. He's also very rich, with an estimated wealth of $30 billion US. That makes him the wealthiest ruler in the world. Well, Nupon Wanganan is the editor of BBC Thai.
They want the Prime Minister to resign, and as we said, this Prime Minister has been ruling the country since 2014, since he led a coup in 2014, and then the students also want the new constitution. They say they want a constitution that is more accountable to the people, with less influence of the military. And also the third one, which is very important, they want the reform of the monarchy, which they say they want the monarchy to be an institution that is accountable to the people.
And do they have the support of any of the main political parties?
Well, most of the parties now have been quite unsupportive of the students and of the youth. You've got the government parties has been trying to delay all the demand by the students to come up with a new constitution. But you've got some opposition parties that seem to be supporting the students as well, but because they have the minorities votes in parliament, so they cannot really try to push this forward.
And I was surprised when I saw these protests. Aren't the protesters breaking those strict rules around the monarchy in Thailand?
Yes, we know about this lèse majesté law, which is, you are not allowed to defame the king, the queen, the heir apparent or the regent. Otherwise, you could face a jail term of maximum of 15 years. But it is very unprecedented that students and youth, they all come out in droves to protest, to demand for a reform of the monarchy, which has never happened in my generation. But with this younger generation, they've been very brave on this, and still we don't know what's going to happen as yet. As Jonathan Head was reporting that both sides have been restrained in their movement so far, but we don't know what's going to happen as the night goes by. It's very early in the morning now, and there's a large crowd in front of Government House now. But the Prime Minister came out today and said that he wants the police to take drastic legal action against these people who has broken law, even though this lèse-majesté law has not been enforced in several years. But there are other laws that the government can still use to go after the student leaders, and which could be, and these laws are as harsh as the lèse-majesté law itself.
If you see something, say something.